January 30th, 2026. The United States Department of Justice uploads over 3 million pages of documents to their website, 2,000 videos, 180,000 images, the largest single release of investigative files in modern American history. These are the Epstein files, 2 decades of FBI investigations, thousands of witness interviews, evidence from multiple criminal cases, and answers to questions that have haunted this case since it first broke in 2005. But here's what makes this release different from everything that came before. The documents reveal not just what happened inside Jeffrey Epstein's mansions, but how a sophisticated network operated for over a decade, how investigators identified multiple co-conspirators, how powerful people attempted to distance themselves from one of the most notorious criminals in recent memory. The files contain information that changes our understanding of this case. Some of it confirms long-standing suspicions, some of it raises entirely new questions, and some of it, according to lawmakers and survivors, is still being withheld. This investigation examines 10 revelations from the newly released files, 10 pieces of evidence that shed light on how Jeffrey Epstein built his operation, who knew about it, and what really happened in the hours before his death. Some of these revelations come from official FBI documents, some from internal Justice Department emails, some from surveillance footage that had never been seen by the public until now. What you're about to hear is based entirely on declassified government records. We will clearly distinguish between confirmed facts and unverified theories. We will examine the evidence objectively, and we will let you draw your own conclusions about what these files actually reveal. This is the investigation into the Epstein files, and these are the 10 revelations that changed everything we thought we knew about this case. Before we examine these revelations from the newly declassified documents, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Here at the Investigation Room, we analyze complex criminal cases using only verified evidence and official documents. We examine government files, review court transcripts, and search for truth in investigations that deserve serious, thorough coverage. New in-depth documentaries every week. If you're following the Epstein case, hit that like button, and let me know in the comments which revelation from these files you find most significant. The identification of co-conspirators, the surveillance failures, the information still being withheld? Now let's examine what these 3 million pages actually reveal. July the 6th, 2019. 3:42 p.m., Jeffrey Epstein's private jet lands at Teterboro Airport in New Jersey. FBI agents are waiting. Within minutes, America's most notorious financier is in federal custody, charged with sex trafficking and conspiracy. But here's what the newly released files reveal. Investigators weren't just focused on Epstein. They had already identified 10 other people as potential co-conspirators, and they moved on them immediately. An email dated July 7, 2019, just one day after Epstein's arrest, shows an FBI agent from the New York office writing to colleagues, quote, "When you get a chance, can you give me an update on the status of the 10 co-conspirators?" 10. Not 1 or 2. 10 people the FBI believed might have been involved in Epstein's crimes. The response came quickly. By July 9th, investigators had already made contact. The email states, 3 have been located in Florida and served grand jury subpoenas. 1 in Boston, 1 in New York City, 1 in Connecticut were located and served. That's 6 people served with subpoenas in just 3 days. The FBI was moving fast, but most of the names in these documents are redacted, covered with black squares, protected from public view. We don't know who most of these 10 people are. The Justice Department says this is to protect ongoing investigations and respect victims' privacy. One name that isn't redacted is Ghislaine Maxwell. We already knew about her involvement. She was convicted in December 2021 and is currently serving 20 years in prison for sex trafficking. Another name appears, Jean-Luc Brunel, a modeling agent who had known Epstein for decades. The email says, attempts were made to reach Brunel. According to the documents, Brunel ran a modeling agency that received financing from Epstein. Multiple women accused Brunel of transporting young models to Epstein's properties. In 2020, French police arrested Brunel, and charged him with rape of minors. He maintained his innocence. On February 19, 2022, Jean-Luc Brunel was found dead in his Paris prison cell. Authorities ruled it a suicide. He was 65 years old, so we have Maxwell, convicted and imprisoned. We have Brunel, dead before trial, and we have 8 other names that remain hidden behind redactions. An Internal Justice Department memo from 2019 indicates that prosecutors were preparing an 86-page report titled Investigation into Potential Co-Conspirators of Jeffrey Epstein. The report contained statements from 24 women who said Epstein abused them as minors, and 14 women who said they were abused as adults. The files show that the FBI had been building cases against these co-conspirators even before Epstein's arrest. They had evidence. They had witness statements. They were ready to move. But then, on August 10, 2019, Jeffrey Epstein died in his prison cell. The main defendant was gone, and according to legal experts, that complicated efforts to prosecute others. Here's what we still don't know. Who are the other 8 co-conspirators? Were any of them ever charged? Are investigations still ongoing? The Justice Department hasn't provided clear answers. Representatives Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna, who authored the Epstein Files Transparency Act, have stated publicly that they believe the government is withholding crucial information about potential co-conspirators. They've threatened contempt proceedings against Attorney General Pam Bondi if more files aren't released. This revelation matters because it fundamentally changes how we understand Epstein's operation. This wasn't one man acting alone. According to the FBI's own documents, at least 10 people may have been involved in facilitating these crimes, and most of them have never been publicly identified. January 2020. A prosecutor in the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York sends an internal email. The subject line is classified. The contents were hidden until the January 2026 file release. The email states, "For your situational awareness, we wanted to let you know that the flight records we received yesterday reflect that Donald Trump traveled on Epstein's private jet many more times than we previously had reported, or that we were aware of." The message continues. Trump is listed as a passenger on at least 8 flights between 1993 and 1996. This is significant because for years, the public understanding was that Trump had limited contact with Epstein. Trump himself stated in 2019, "I knew him like everybody in Palm Beach knew him. I had not been a fan of his and had not spoken to him in about 15 years. But the newly released files paint a more complex picture. Flight manifests show Trump's name appearing multiple times on Epstein's private aircraft in the mid-1990s. Internal Justice Department emails indicate prosecutors were surprised by the frequency of these flights when they reviewed the records in late 2019. The files also include a 2002 quote from Trump about Epstein, published in New York Magazine. "I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy. He's a lot of fun to be with. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side." Among the newly released documents is a photograph recovered from Steve Bannon's iPhone in June 2021. The image shows Trump and Ghislaine Maxwell together. An FBI email describing the find states, "I've been looking through Steve Bannon's iPhone on Celebrite. As I was going through the images from that phone, I found an image of Trump and Ghislaine Maxwell." Another document reveals that in the lead-up to Ghislaine Maxwell's 2021 trial, the Justice Department subpoenaed Mar-a-Lago, Trump's private club in Florida, for records related to Epstein. The files also contain multiple unverified allegations against Trump. One document from 2016 describes an allegation from a woman who claimed Trump assaulted her at an Epstein property in 1994 when she was 13 years old. The case was voluntarily dropped before trial, and Trump has denied all such allegations. No charges have ever been filed. It is crucial to state clearly, Donald Trump has never been charged with any crimes related to Jeffrey Epstein. He has not been accused of wrongdoing by prosecutors. These flight records and associations do not constitute evidence of criminal activity. However, the newly released documents do establish that Trump's connection to Epstein was more extensive than publicly acknowledged. They also reveal that prosecutors were actively investigating these connections as recently as 2020, during Trump's presidency. The files show that Epstein maintained photos of Trump in his Manhattan mansion. FBI photographs taken during the 2019 raid show framed images of Trump on Epstein's desk and walls. One photo shows Clinton in a blue dress hanging in Epstein's home. Another shows caricatures of political figures. According to the documents, Epstein collected photographs and maintained relationships with numerous powerful people. The files contain thousands of references to Trump, but they also contain hundreds of references to Bill Clinton, Prince Andrew, and many others. What makes this revelation significant is timing. These files were released under the Epstein Files Transparency Act, which Trump himself signed into law in November 2025. During his 2024 campaign, Trump had promised to release all Epstein documents. Quote, "I will release everything the American people deserve to know." But when the files began emerging in December 2025 and January 2026, Trump's messaging changed. On December 26, 2025, Trump posted on Truth Social, "When do they say no more and work on election fraud?" The implication appeared to be that Trump wanted the Justice Department to stop releasing files and move on to other matters. Representatives from both parties criticized this position. They argued that transparency requires releasing all information, regardless of who might be embarrassed by it. Again, to be absolutely clear, nothing in these files accuses Donald Trump of criminal activity. What they do reveal is that the relationship between Trump and Epstein was closer and lasted longer than Trump has publicly acknowledged. And they show that federal prosecutors considered this relationship significant enough to investigate and document. February 13, 2020, almost 6 months after Epstein's death. The FBI interviews a woman who worked as Epstein's executive assistant for nearly 2 decades. Her identity is redacted in the files, but her testimony provides a window into how Epstein's operation functioned on a daily basis. The interview is documented in what's called an attorney proffer. This is a legal procedure where a witness provides information through their lawyer. The FBI takes notes. Everything is recorded. The executive assistant describes her primary responsibility: scheduling massages for Jeffrey Epstein. Every single day, sometimes twice a day. According to the proffer, she scheduled 1 to 2 massages daily throughout her entire employment. She states that she was told these were normal massages, part of Epstein's health routine. Quote, "Just part of his normal day, akin to someone going daily to the gym." She claims she never witnessed any criminal activity. She says she had no idea the massages involved anything inappropriate. She thought she was scheduling legitimate therapeutic sessions. But here's what makes this testimony significant: the sheer volume, 1 to 2 massages per day, for years. The mathematics is staggering. Over the course of a decade, that would amount to thousands of scheduled sessions. Cross-referencing this testimony with other documents in the file reveals patterns. Multiple young women told investigators they were recruited to provide massages to Epstein. They were told they could earn $200 to $500 per session. Many were high school students. One victim whose statement appears in the files describes being recruited at age 16. She worked as a waitress when a woman approached her offering easy money. Quote, "Give massages to wealthy men." She went to Epstein's Palm Beach mansion. She describes the interior as looking like something from Beauty and the Beast. Expensive, ornate, intimidating. According to her statement, she was brought to a room where Epstein was lying on a massage table. The session started as a massage. Then it became something else. She was paid $300. And then she was offered additional money if she could bring other girls. $300 for each recruit. According to her testimony, she alone brought 20 to 50 girls to Epstein's mansion over several years. Her friend who introduced her to the opportunity brought even more. Now, returning to the executive assistant's testimony, she scheduled these sessions. She arranged the appointments. According to her statement, she treated this as legitimate work. She even helped some of the young women with travel arrangements when Epstein wanted them to visit his other properties. The assistant states she resigned immediately after Epstein's July 2019 arrest. She claims she was shocked when she learned what had actually been happening. This revelation matters for several reasons. First, it demonstrates how Epstein normalized illegal activity. He created systems and routines that made criminal behavior appear legitimate. An executive assistant scheduling massages sounds professional, businesslike, normal. Second, it shows how people can be involved in facilitating crimes without understanding what they're facilitating. The assistant's testimony suggests she genuinely believed she was scheduling health appointments. Whether investigators believed her is not stated in the released documents. Third, it provides insight into the scale of Epstein's operation. 1 to 2 massages per day, year after year, required a constant supply of new participants. This wasn't occasional criminal activity. According to the evidence, this was systematic. The files indicate that FBI agents interviewed numerous employees who worked at Epstein's various properties: housekeepers, drivers, pilots, administrative staff. Some reported seeing young women coming and going frequently. Others said they were instructed never to ask questions about Epstein's guests. One employee, whose name is redacted, told the FBI he was required to place $100 bills fanned out on a table near Epstein's bed before these massage sessions. He also stated he was instructed to place a firearm between the mattresses in the bedroom, and he described disposing of used condoms after the sessions. This employee's testimony contradicts the executive assistant's claim that these were normal therapeutic massages. But it's worth noting that different employees had different levels of access and awareness. Some may have known more than others. What's clear from the files is that Epstein created an infrastructure. He employed people. He established routines. He built systems that allowed him to commit crimes while maintaining a veneer of normalcy. And according to prosecutors, this continued for over a decade before law enforcement intervened. When FBI agents raided Jeffrey Epstein's Manhattan mansion on July 6, 2019, they were looking for evidence of sex trafficking. What they found in a locked safe was something else entirely. A passport, Austrian, expired, with Epstein's photo but a different name. The newly released files contain high-resolution images of this document. It shows stamps from France, Spain, Saudi Arabia, and the United Kingdom. It lists a Saudi Arabian residence, and it was issued in the 1980s. At Epstein's bail hearing in July 2019, prosecutors presented this passport as evidence that Epstein was a flight risk. They argued it demonstrated his ability and willingness to assume false identities to avoid detection. Epstein's lawyers offered an explanation. They claimed the passport was obtained for security purposes. According to their argument, Epstein was wealthy and prominent. He could be targeted for kidnapping or extortion because of his Jewish heritage. Therefore, he needed a false identity document to protect himself while traveling. The court didn't accept this argument. Judge Richard Berman denied bail, citing the passport among other factors. But the newly released photographs reveal details that weren't visible in previous court filings. The passport shows extensive use, multiple entry and exit stamps. This wasn't a document kept in a safe for emergencies. According to the physical evidence, it had been actively used. The files don't explain how Epstein obtained an Austrian passport under a false name. They don't identify who created it or who knew about it. These questions remain unanswered. What the document does demonstrate is premeditation. Epstein didn't just have wealth and connections, he had the foresight to create escape options. He prepared for the possibility that he might need to flee. This revelation gained renewed significance after Epstein's death. Some observers pointed to the passport as evidence of consciousness of guilt. If Epstein was innocent, why would he need a false identity? The files also reveal that when prosecutors searched Epstein's safe, they found cash and diamonds along with the passport. Portable wealth, easy to transport across borders. According to testimony from employees, Epstein maintained safes in multiple properties. The contents of those other safes are not fully documented in the released files. Among the newly released documents is a diagram, a chart showing Epstein's network of associates and employees, created by the FBI, updated as the investigation progressed. At the center is Jeffrey Epstein. Connected to him by lines are names. Some are clearly visible. Ghislaine Maxwell, several attorneys, an accountant. Others are redacted with black squares. This chart reveals structure. Epstein didn't operate alone or chaotically. He had an organization, people with specific roles, people who helped him manage his properties, his finances, and according to prosecutors, his crimes. Maxwell appears prominently. The chart shows her connected to multiple properties and to the recruitment network. This aligns with testimony from her trial, where witnesses described her as the person who initially approached them and brought them to Epstein. The chart also shows connections between Epstein and various businesses, a modeling agency, investment firms, charitable foundations. The newly released files include emails suggesting some of these entities may have been used for money laundering, though this has not been proven in court. One particularly interesting detail in the organizational chart is the number of legal professionals connected to Epstein. The chart shows at least 6 attorneys listed by name or title. This reflects Epstein's approach to legal protection. He maintained a team of lawyers ready to defend him, negotiate on his behalf, or apply pressure to his accusers. The files contain correspondence between Epstein's legal team and prosecutors. These emails show aggressive legal strategies, motions to dismiss, demands for evidence, threats of litigation against victims who came forward. In one email from 2007, a prosecutor writes to a colleague expressing frustration, quote, "Epstein's lawyers are burying us in paperwork. They're trying to overwhelm our resources." This strategy apparently worked. In 2008, Epstein received a plea deal that many observers consider extraordinarily lenient. He pleaded guilty to state charges of soliciting prostitution. He served 13 months in a private wing of a county jail with work release privileges. The prosecutor who agreed to that deal was Alexander Acosta, who later became Secretary of Labor under President Trump. Acosta resigned from that position in July 2019, after the Epstein case returned to public attention. The organizational chart also shows international connections, names and entities in France, the United Kingdom, and the Virgin Islands. This reflects the global nature of Epstein's operations and social network. What the chart doesn't show is motive. It documents connections but doesn't explain why people maintained these connections or what they knew about Epstein's activities. Some people named in the chart have publicly stated they had no knowledge of Epstein's crimes. They describe themselves as acquaintances or business associates who cut ties when allegations emerged. Others, like Maxwell, were convicted of actively participating in criminal activity. The chart raises a question that runs throughout the entire case. How many people knew? And of those who knew, how many were complicit? The FBI created this chart to map potential co-conspirators. But only Maxwell has faced trial. Only Maxwell has been convicted. The chart suggests there may be others who bear responsibility, but most of those names remain hidden. Prince Andrew, Duke of York, second son of Queen Elizabeth II. His association with Jeffrey Epstein became public knowledge in 2011 when photographs emerged of them walking together in Central Park. This was after Epstein's 2008 conviction, after he was a registered sex offender. But the newly released files reveal the extent of communication between Prince Andrew and Epstein's inner circle, particularly Ghislaine Maxwell. Email exchanges show Maxwell acting as an intermediary. In one 2010 message, Epstein writes to Prince Andrew, "I have a friend who I think you might enjoy having dinner with." Other emails show Prince Andrew requesting Maxwell's help in selecting what he called unsuitable friends. The context of this phrase is not explained in the released documents, but the phrasing itself raised eyebrows among investigators. One particularly troubling revelation comes from anonymous letters sent to British police in the mid-1990s. Multiple people wrote claiming that Prince Andrew and associates were involved in serious crimes against minors. These letters were included in the FBI files because they were forwarded to American investigators as potentially relevant information. It is crucial to state, these were anonymous letters. They were never verified. They were not the basis for charges. Prince Andrew has never been convicted of any crimes. However, Prince Andrew did face a civil lawsuit in the United States. Virginia Giuffre alleged that Epstein and Maxwell trafficked her to Prince Andrew when she was 17 years old. She claimed she was forced to have sex with him on 3 occasions, in London, New York, and on Epstein's private island. Prince Andrew denied these allegations. In a November 2019 BBC interview, he stated he had no recollection of meeting Virginia Giuffre. He provided alibi details that were later questioned. He claimed he was at a Pizza Express in Woking on one of the dates in question. The interview was widely criticized as disastrous for Prince Andrew's public image. Shortly afterward, he stepped back from public duties. In February 2022, before the case went to trial, Prince Andrew and Virginia Giuffre reached a settlement. Terms were not disclosed, but reports suggested a payment of approximately $12 million. The settlement included no admission of wrongdoing. In January 2025, following continued public pressure related to the Epstein case, Prince Andrew was stripped of his royal titles and military honors. He is no longer known as His Royal Highness. He no longer represents the royal family in any official capacity. The newly released files show that the FBI was aware of Prince Andrew's connections to Epstein as early as 2011. Internal emails discuss whether to interview him or request his cooperation. The decision appears to have been not to pursue that line of investigation aggressively, possibly due to diplomatic complications. One FBI memo from 2019 notes, "Subject has extensive resources and connections in the United Kingdom. Cooperation from British authorities may be limited due to subject's family connections." The files also reveal something else. Ghislaine Maxwell and Prince Andrew maintained communication even after Epstein's 2008 conviction and registration as a sex offender. Emails from 2009 and 2010 show friendly exchanges, discussions of social events, invitations to gatherings. This matters because it shows that for some people in Epstein's circle, his criminal conviction did not end the relationship. They continued associating with him and with each other. A photograph from Epstein's Manhattan home, newly released in the files, shows a collection of framed images on a desk. Among them are photos of Prince Andrew. The placement suggests these were displayed prominently, not hidden away. According to victim testimony from Maxwell's trial, Prince Andrew was a visitor to Epstein's properties on multiple occasions. Staff members confirmed seeing him there. Flight logs confirm he traveled on Epstein's private jet. What remains unclear from the files is whether British authorities conducted their own investigation into Prince Andrew's association with Epstein. The released American documents suggest limited cooperation between US and UK investigators on this specific matter. In December 2025, following the file releases, several members of the British Parliament called for a formal inquiry into what British intelligence and law enforcement knew about Epstein's activities in the United Kingdom, and when they knew it. As of the most recent file release in January 2026, no such inquiry has been announced. The revelation about Prince Andrew matters not because he was the only person in Epstein's social circle, but because his case illustrates a pattern: powerful people maintaining relationships with Epstein. Some cutting ties when convenient, others continuing association even after criminal convictions, and many avoiding serious legal consequences despite documented connections to someone who was trafficking minors. Among the most disturbing documents in the release is a personal diary, written by a young woman. She describes meeting Epstein when she was 16 years old. She had run away from home. She was living with her older sister. They had very little money. They were surviving on random jobs and temporary work. Then they met Jeffrey Epstein. According to her account, Epstein offered both sisters work. He told them they could travel the world. They would be paid well. All they had to do was provide massages. The diary entries describe the first visit to Epstein's mansion. She writes about feeling intimidated by the luxury. She describes Epstein as charming initially, friendly, generous. The first massage session, she writes, started normally, but then it progressed to sexual activity. She felt uncomfortable but didn't know how to refuse. She needed the money. She didn't want to disappoint her sister. Epstein paid them $500 each for that first session. He told them to come back. He offered them more money if they would bring friends. The diary continues over several years. She describes traveling on Epstein's private jet, visiting his island in the Caribbean, meeting other girls, dozens of them, all young, all there for the same purpose. Interestingly, her description of Epstein himself is not entirely negative. She writes that he was often kind to the girls. He helped them with small things, drove them places, gave gifts. He seemed to genuinely care about them in some ways, but her description of Ghislaine Maxwell is different. She describes Maxwell as cold, controlling, menacing. She writes that the girls feared Maxwell more than Epstein. Maxwell set rules. Maxwell enforced consequences. Maxwell made it clear what was expected. The diary mentions Jean-Luc Brunel several times. She describes him as a frequent visitor to the island. She notes that he brought other young women with him, often models. She doesn't describe any criminal activity involving Brunel directly, but his presence in Epstein's world is documented throughout her account. One entry describes an incident where she and her sister were tied to a tree on the island. She doesn't elaborate on the context. The entry is brief and matter-of-fact, suggesting this was not the most traumatic experience she had during her time with Epstein. By the time she turned 18, according to the diary, she and her sister had essentially been living on Epstein's island for extended periods. They were no longer in regular contact with their family. Their entire lives revolved around Epstein and his network. The diary ends abruptly. There's no clear explanation of how or when she left Epstein's control. The FBI files don't indicate whether she cooperated with investigators or whether she wishes to remain anonymous. What makes this diary particularly significant is the voice it provides. Most of the Epstein files are official documents: police reports, court filings, FBI memos, dry, professional, clinical. The diary is personal. It's written in the first person. It conveys emotions, fear, confusion, gradual acceptance of an abnormal situation as normal, the psychological process of being groomed and controlled. One entry stands out. She writes about a conversation with Epstein where he explained his philosophy on relationships. According to her account, he believed in having multiple partners. He saw himself as building a collection. He told her that beauty and youth should be shared, not hoarded by one person in a traditional relationship. She writes that at the time, this seemed almost philosophical, sophisticated. It was only later, she notes, that she realized how this philosophy justified exploitation. Psychologists who study coercive control and trafficking recognize these patterns. Perpetrators often frame exploitation in ideological terms. They make victims feel special, chosen, part of something exclusive. They create environments where abnormal behavior becomes normalized through repetition and social pressure. The diary reveals this process in real time. Entry by entry, we see a 16-year-old girl's perception shift. What started as disturbing became familiar. What should have prompted escape became routine. By the end of the diary, she writes about seeing tons of other girls on the island, all young, all servicing Epstein's guests. She notes that she doesn't know if any were underage at that point, but the sheer number suggests a systematic operation. This connects to other revelations in the files: the executive assistant scheduling daily massages, the recruitment networks bringing new girls constantly, the infrastructure supporting continuous access to young women. The diary doesn't answer all questions. It doesn't name other perpetrators beyond those already publicly known. It doesn't provide evidence of specific crimes beyond what Epstein and Maxwell were already convicted of. What it does provide is human context. Behind the statistics and legal terminology, there were real people, teenagers who made desperate choices, who were manipulated, who were gradually trapped in situations they initially thought they could control. The woman who wrote this diary has never been publicly identified. The FBI redacted her name throughout the files. She has the right to privacy. She has the right to tell her story on her own terms, if she chooses to tell it at all. But her diary, now part of the permanent public record, stands as testimony, not just to what Jeffrey Epstein did, but to how he did it, how he built trust, how he exploited vulnerability, how he maintained control, and how even after his death, the impact on his victims continues. August 9th, 2019, 10:40 p.m. The last time security cameras confirmed Jeffrey Epstein was alive in his cell at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in Manhattan. August 10th, 2019, 6:30 a.m. Guards discover Epstein unresponsive, hanging from his bed, an orange cloth around his neck. He is transported to New York Downtown Hospital and pronounced dead at 6:39 a.m. In the 10 hours between those two moments, a series of failures occurred. The newly released files document each one in detail. First, staffing. The two guards assigned to monitor Epstein's unit that night were both working overtime. One was on his 5th consecutive day of overtime. The other was on mandatory overtime, meaning he had already worked an 8-hour shift and was now working another. Neither guard was a trained correctional officer. One was a material handler, not assigned to guard duty under normal circumstances. But the facility was severely understaffed. According to Justice Department reports, nobody wanted to work at the Metropolitan Correctional Center. Conditions were poor, pay was inadequate, morale was low. Second, the cellmate issue. Following Epstein's suspected suicide attempt on July 23rd, prison psychologists determined he needed a cellmate at all times. On August 8th, Epstein's cellmate was transferred to another facility. No replacement was assigned. Multiple emails in the released files show that staff were aware Epstein was alone. An email dated July 30th, 2019, sent to 70 staffers, specifically stated Epstein was to be housed with a cellmate. Yet on the night of his death, he was by himself. Third, the checks. Bureau of Prisons policy required guards to check on inmates in the special housing unit every 30 minutes. Visual confirmation, documentation of each check. The guards didn't do it. For the entire 10-hour period, they failed to conduct a single check on Epstein. Instead, they sat at their desk. The newly released video footage shows them sleeping, shopping online, and browsing the internet. To cover their failure, they falsified records. They created official count slips claiming they had checked on Epstein every 30 minutes. These documents were submitted as official reports. Both guards were eventually charged with falsifying records. They entered into a deferred prosecution agreement, meaning charges would be dropped if they completed community service and complied with other conditions. Neither guard served prison time. Fourth, the cameras. The special housing unit had multiple security cameras. But on the night of Epstein's death, most of them weren't recording. A system malfunction had prevented the cameras from saving footage since late July. The camera pointed directly at Epstein's cell door was not recording. There is no video of who entered or exited his cell. There is no visual confirmation of the cell door remaining locked. One camera in the unit's common area was recording. The footage shows guards rushing across the frame at 6:30 a.m. when they discovered Epstein. But it doesn't show the cell tier itself. The FBI conducted extensive forensic analysis of the recovered footage. According to their report, there is no evidence of anyone other than authorized personnel entering the area. But because most cameras weren't functioning, this analysis is incomplete. Fifth, the excess linens. Following his July 23rd incident, Epstein was supposed to have limited bedding, just enough to prevent self-harm. But on the night of his death, he had excess linens in his cell, enough material to construct a ligature. Nobody can explain how he obtained these extra linens. The logs don't show anyone delivering additional bedding. Staff can't account for it. The Justice Department's Inspector General conducted a comprehensive investigation into these failures. Their report, released in June 2023, concluded that Epstein died by suicide. The medical examiner's office reached the same conclusion. The FBI found no evidence of foul play, but the report also acknowledged that the combination of failures was unprecedented. Quote, multiple serious failures by MCC staff constituting misconduct and dereliction of their duties. The newly released files include photographs of Epstein's cell taken after his body was removed. These images show disarray, medications on the bunk, a CPAP machine for sleep apnea, multiple fabric items. Forensic experts who reviewed these photographs noted that the scene appeared to have been disturbed. Objects were in different positions across multiple photos taken during the same time period. This is unusual and suggests the cell was not secured properly as a potential crime scene. The files also reveal that Mark Epstein, Jeffrey's younger brother, has consistently stated he believes his brother was murdered. He has hired independent pathologist Dr. Michael Baden to review the autopsy findings. Baden initially raised questions about the injuries to Epstein's neck, multiple fractures to small bones in the throat. Baden suggested these injuries are more consistent with strangulation than hanging. However, Dr. Barbara Sampson, the chief medical examiner who performed the official autopsy, stood by her conclusion. She stated that all injuries were consistent with suicide by hanging. She cited the lack of defensive wounds, the absence of struggle marks, and other forensic indicators. The files don't resolve this debate. What they do show is systematic negligence, policies ignored, procedures violated, documentation falsified, and the result was that America's most high-profile inmate died while in federal custody. The man who potentially could have testified about numerous co-conspirators. The man who knew details about powerful people, dead before his trial even began. Conspiracy theories flourished immediately. Claims that Epstein was murdered to protect the powerful people he could implicate. Theories that he was smuggled out of prison and is living under a new identity. Suggestions that his death was faked. The Justice Department's official position, based on forensic evidence and investigation, is that Jeffrey Epstein took his own life. The failures that allowed him to do so were the result of negligence, not conspiracy. But the newly released files also reveal that investigators considered alternative theories. They investigated whether money changed hands. They looked for evidence of outside interference. They found none. Or, as some observers note, they found no evidence that survived heavy redaction. Portions of the files related to the death investigation are among the most heavily censored in the entire release. What we can say with certainty is this: Jeffrey Epstein should not have been able to kill himself in that cell. If the protocols had been followed, if the guards had done their jobs, if the cameras had been working, his death would not have occurred in that manner. Instead, the main defendant died. The prosecution lost its central witness, and countless questions that could have been answered in a trial remain unanswered today. Among the figures repeatedly mentioned in the newly released files is a name many Americans had never heard before: Jean-Luc Brunel. Brunel was a French modeling agent. He ran agencies including Karen Models and MC2 Model Management. MC2 was established in 2004 with financing from Jeffrey Epstein. The newly released files contain emails between Brunel and Epstein dating back to the early 2000s. They discuss business plans, recruitment strategies, travel arrangements, but they also contain something else: testimony from multiple women who describe being recruited through Brunel's modeling agencies and then trafficked to Epstein. One woman describes being told she had potential as a model. She was young, from a small town, with dreams of fashion success. Brunel's agency offered her a contract, paid for her travel to New York, set up photo shoots. Then, according to her statement, she was told she needed to meet important people who could advance her career. One of these people was Jeffrey Epstein. She describes being brought to Epstein's Manhattan mansion, being told this was a networking opportunity, realizing too late that something else was expected. Multiple women provided similar accounts to investigators. The pattern was consistent: recruitment through legitimate-seeming modeling opportunities, gradual introduction to Epstein's world, escalation to sexual exploitation. Brunel denied all allegations. In a 2015 lawsuit deposition, he stated he had no knowledge of Epstein's criminal activities. He claimed their relationship was purely professional and financial. But the newly released files reveal that FBI investigators didn't believe him. Internal memos describe Brunel as a person of interest and a potential co-conspirator. In December 2020, Brunel was arrested in Paris as he was attempting to board a flight to Senegal. French authorities charged him with rape of minors and sexual harassment. The charges were based on testimony from women who claimed Brunel had abused them, some when they were underage. Brunel was held at La Santé prison in Paris. He denied all charges. His lawyers stated he would fight to clear his name. On February 19, 2022, Jean-Luc Brunel was found dead in his cell. Guards discovered him hanging from a bedsheet. He was 65 years old. French authorities investigated and concluded he had taken his own life. The timing of Brunel's death is significant. He died while awaiting trial on serious charges. He died before he could testify about his relationship with Epstein or name anyone else who might have been involved. Brunel's death drew immediate comparison to Epstein's. Both men died in prison cells, both by hanging. both while facing charges related to sex trafficking, both before they could stand trial. Conspiracy theorists suggested this couldn't be coincidence. Some claimed powerful people were eliminating witnesses to protect themselves. French authorities found no evidence of foul play. The prison investigation concluded that Brunel was alone in his cell. Security footage showed no unauthorized entry. His death appeared to be self-inflicted. But the newly released American files show that prosecutors had hoped to use Brunel as a witness. They believed he had information about Epstein's operations. They wanted to know who else was involved. An email from July 2019, just after Epstein's arrest, shows the FBI attempting to locate Brunel and serve him with a grand jury subpoena. The email states, "Attempts were made to reach Brunel." It's unclear whether that subpoena was ever served. It's unclear whether Brunel ever provided testimony to American investigators before his death. What is clear from the files is that Brunel's modeling agencies were identified by the FBI as potential vehicles for recruiting and transporting victims. Financial records show Epstein provided over $1 million in startup funding for MC2. Email correspondence shows Epstein was actively involved in the agency's operations. Some models who worked for MC2 have stated they had positive experiences and were never exposed to anything inappropriate. They describe Brunel as a legitimate professional who helped launch their careers. Others tell a different story, one that aligns with the victim testimony in the FBI files. With Brunel's death, the full truth about his relationship with Epstein and his knowledge of Epstein's crimes died with him. No trial occurred. No verdict was reached. No additional names were revealed. This pattern repeats throughout the Epstein case. The main defendant dead before trial. A key associate dead before trial. Others protected by wealth, influence, or legal maneuvering. Justice, in the traditional sense, remains incomplete. January 30th, 2026. The Department of Justice releases what it claims is the final major batch of Epstein files. Over 3 million pages, 2,000 videos, 180,000 images. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche makes a statement, quote, "With this release, the department has fulfilled its legal obligations under the Epstein Files Transparency Act. Within hours, lawmakers from both parties dispute this claim." Representative Ro Khanna posts on social media. The DOJ told us there are 6 million pages of potentially responsive documents. They've released roughly half. Where's the rest? The newly released files themselves provide the answer. Buried in internal memos is an acknowledgement. The Justice Department has identified over 6 million pages as potentially related to the Epstein investigation. But they've only released approximately 3.5 million. That means more than 2.5 million pages remain classified or withheld. Why? The Justice Department cites several reasons: protection of ongoing investigations, privacy of victims, national security concerns, grand jury secrecy rules. But the Epstein Files Transparency Act specifically ordered the release of all materials, unless they fell under very narrow exceptions. The law was designed to prevent the kind of selective disclosure that allows embarrassing information to remain hidden. Critics argue the Justice Department is violating the spirit, if not the letter, of the law. An email revealed in the files shows that between January 2025 and July 2025, FBI personnel worked 4,637 overtime hours on what was internally called the Special Redaction Project. Cost to taxpayers, over $851,000. That's dedicated manpower applied specifically to censoring these files, deciding what the public can and cannot see. The released documents themselves show the extent of redaction. Some pages are entirely black. Hundreds of names are covered with squares. Entire sections are simply missing from document sequences. In one particularly notable example, FBI photographs from Epstein's mansion show document 254 through DAR 305 marked as not available in web version. 51 consecutive photos. No explanation provided. When the Justice Department re-uploaded the files after technical issues, those photos remained absent. Journalists who downloaded the complete file archives found the missing images. They showed Epstein's gym, personal quarters, and storage areas. Nothing obviously scandalous. Which raises the question, why were they excluded from the public website? The files also reveal something troubling. Requests for redactions came from all parties. Prosecutors requested certain information be classified. Defense attorneys requested other information be sealed. And some victims requested privacy. The result is a patchwork of transparency and secrecy. Some information freely available, other information locked away. Representative Thomas Massie, who co-authored the Epstein Files Transparency Act, stated publicly that he and Representative Khanna are considering contempt proceedings against Attorney General Pam Bondi for failing to release all materials. Whether they will follow through remains to be seen. What we know for certain is this: the 3 million pages released so far represent only part of the story. Somewhere in Justice Department archives, encrypted on secure servers, are millions more pages, more photos, more videos, more evidence. That evidence might name additional co-conspirators. It might reveal the full extent of Epstein's network. It might answer questions that have haunted this case for years. Or it might be mundane, administrative documents, duplicate files, material that adds no new information to the public record. Without seeing what's been withheld, we cannot know which is true, and that uncertainty fuels conspiracy theories. When information is hidden, people assume it must be important. They assume powerful people are being protected. They lose trust in institutions. The Justice Department has stated there will be no further major releases beyond the January 30th batch. Future requests will have to go through traditional channels like Freedom of Information Act filings, which can take years and are subject to additional exemptions. For survivors of Epstein's abuse, this is particularly painful. Many have stated publicly that they support full transparency. They want the world to see the evidence of what happened to them. They want no one to be able to claim ignorance or minimize the crimes. But they also want privacy. They don't want their names and faces in the public domain. They don't want to relive trauma through media coverage. Balancing these competing interests is genuinely difficult. There are legitimate reasons to redact some information, but there are also illegitimate reasons: political convenience, protection of the powerful, avoidance of embarrassment. The public cannot distinguish between these without more information, and the Justice Department has made clear it will not provide that information. So we are left with what we have: 3 million pages of evidence about one of the most notorious criminal enterprises in modern American history, partial truth, incomplete justice, and the knowledge that somewhere, hidden from view, lies the rest of the story. 10 revelations from 3 million pages of documents. 10 pieces of a much larger puzzle. The identification of 10 co-conspirators, most still unnamed. Evidence of more frequent contact between powerful people and Jeffrey Epstein than previously known. The systematic infrastructure that supported daily criminal activity. The fake passport that showed premeditation and planning. The organizational chart that revealed structure and hierarchy. The Prince Andrew emails that documented ongoing relationships even after conviction. The victim's diary that gave human voice to statistics. The prison failures that allowed the main defendant to die before trial. The modeling agency that allegedly served as a recruitment pipeline. And the millions of pages still withheld from public view. These revelations don't answer every question about the Epstein case. They raise new ones. Who are the 8 unnamed co-conspirators? What happened to the investigations into them? Are any still ongoing, or have they all been quietly closed? How many people in Epstein's social circle genuinely didn't know about his crimes? And how many knew but looked away? What's in the 2.5 million pages still withheld by the Justice Department? Is it genuinely sensitive information that must be protected? Or is it evidence of deeper corruption and complicity? These questions may never be fully answered. Jeffrey Epstein is dead. Jean-Luc Brunel is dead. Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison, but maintains her innocence. Most of the others named in the files have not been charged with crimes. What remains is evidence, testimony, documents, photos, videos, the material record of what happened and who was involved, and survivors, women who were victimized as teenagers, who carried these traumas for decades, who finally saw some measure of justice when Maxwell was convicted, but who still wait for full accountability. The release of these files was supposed to provide transparency. The Epstein Files Transparency Act was designed to show the American people what their government knew about this case and when they knew it. In some ways, the release succeeded. We now have access to documents that were classified for years. We can see FBI reports, internal emails, and evidence photographs. We can read victim testimony and track the investigation's progress. But in other ways, the release failed. Millions of pages remain hidden. Key information is redacted. The process was rushed, chaotic, and politically charged. Still, what we have learned matters. These 10 revelations paint a picture of systematic abuse, of power used to exploit the vulnerable, of institutions that failed to act quickly enough, and of questions that remain unanswered. Jeffrey Epstein was arrested on July 6, 2019. He died on August 10, 2019. In those 35 days, he never faced trial. He never testified under oath. He never named his co-conspirators. The case against him died with him. What remains is the evidence. And now, more of that evidence is public than ever before. Whether justice has been served is a question each person must answer for themselves. Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison. That is something. But it may not be enough. For the survivors, justice means accountability for everyone involved. It means truth. It means recognition of what they endured. And it means ensuring this never happens again. These files are part of that process. Imperfect, incomplete, but real. The investigation room will continue following this case. As more information emerges, as legal proceedings continue, as survivors speak out, we will be here examining the evidence and searching for truth. Because these weren't just crimes against individuals. They were crimes against children, against the vulnerable, against those who should have been protected. And that demands our attention, our scrutiny, our commitment to ensuring that power and wealth can never again shield predators from justice. Thank you for watching this investigation. These files represent years of law enforcement work, thousands of investigative hours, courage from survivors who came forward, and a justice system that, however imperfectly, eventually acted. The search for full truth continues, and we will be here, examining the evidence, every step of the way. If this investigation revealed information you weren't aware of, please subscribe to the Investigation Room. We examine complex criminal cases using only verified evidence and official documents. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a new documentary. Share this video with anyone following the Epstein case. These revelations deserve to be widely understood. And let me know in the comments. Which revelation do you find most significant? What questions do you still have? What information do you believe is still being withheld? These are the cases that demand serious coverage. These are the stories that deserve respect for the victims and commitment to truth. Thank you for watching. And remember, justice delayed is not justice denied, as long as we keep demanding answers.